Hi, everybody, and welcome. We are holding in the middle of chapter 49. Just a very, very quick review of what we studied in chapter 49. The rabbi was speaking about the length that God goes through to connect, create, vivifies us, and provide us with our needs. And we spoke in general about the distance between one universe to the other. We spoke about Sovev and Memale, that Sovev is encircling, Memale is filling in. So one world would be the Sovev for the world below it. So you have three universes. The first one, Atzilut, emanation, is a new creation, but there is nothing there yet. It's too close to God. After that, you have creation, formation, and action. So each universe is a major, major change and descent. And all that God is doing so that we can be created and God enjoy the relationship. This is what we studied so far. Now the rabbi, in this half of the second half of the chapter, the rabbi wants to drive it home to bring us into connecting to God like a reflection in through water, where we learn all that God does. It calls for us to reciprocate. I think I shared with you last week the story. If it's true or not, I'm not sure, but it's a story about the girl in the yichud room, in the seclusion room, that answered the phone. And the husband at that moment knew that's not my bashert. You cannot violate a special moment when someone is dedicating and giving themselves so much. So whenever you have a couple and one of the spouses pushes away a appointment, watching something, and pay attention to the other, they expect the other to do the same. What if the other does not reciprocate, even though it's not written somewhere that I'm obligated? That creates a great disappointment, because we do expect a reciprocation, especially for activities or behavior that is not called for, but we go above and beyond. It makes sense. I think it's a simple thing. The rabbi wants to, therefore, now drive it home with the following. The rabbi is going into a new topic. Even if you don't study Kabbalah, but you pray every morning, it will enable you to connect to the prayer in a unique way that nobody else understands. Just like I did a couple of weeks ago about the first blessing of the Amidah, Magen Avraham. Why do we say Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? What's so unique about them? And we discuss the idea. I am going to talk about the Shema and its blessings. When God gave us the commandments, everybody knows there are two categories. There is a positive and there is a negative, right? But there is another division or other categories. There are certain mitzvot that we must thank God with a prayer before, and they are called, that category is Birkot HaNehenin. Anytime I derive pleasure. For example, I eat, I thank God for it. I smell something good, I thank God for it. Every time I derive pleasure, any taste, even for vision, when I see a rainbow, there is a prayer for. Anybody is familiar with that? If you open up the prayer book, you'll see a blessing for rainbow. If you see lightning and thunder like we experienced in the last 2 days, there is a blessing for it. Even when you see, unfortunately, maybe politically incorrect, but I have to say, when you see a person who is very unusual shape, you have to say a blessing. There is a prayer for that. So this is called Birkot HaNehen. The one mitzvah, one category is Birkot HaNehen. Anytime I derive pleasure, I have to thank God. The other one is Birkat HaMitzvot. Anytime I have a mitzvah to perform, I have to say a prayer. I celebrate Shabbat because it's God commanded us. What blessing we do? Over wine. We get married. It's a mitzvah. What blessing we do? 7 blessings, not 1. We get a circumcision, a blessing. Eating matzah, blessing. Eating bread. Lulav. Building a sukkah. There is a question why you don't make a blessing on sukkah. Go to the mikveh, blessing, everything. It's called a mitzvah. Now, you light Shabbat candles, you make a mitzvah, or you make a blessing. Did God command us to light Shabbat candles? Yes or no? No. The answer is no. It's a rabbinic enactment. But because God assigned every rabbinic enactment becoming obligatory, then we can say God had commanded us. So we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, we say a blessing, right? There is a mitzvah to say the Shema every morning and every night. We need to say a blessing before we fulfill the mitzvah. What are the blessings that we say before the Shema? There are 2 blessings before the Shema. One is Yotzer HaMeorot, from a Meir, and the other is Abocher Be'am Yisrael Be'avo, the second one. The Rashba, Rabbi Shlomo ben Aderet, very famous author, doctor from the 14th century, is asking, what's the connection between the 2 blessings and the Shema? If I have an obligation to say a blessing for the Shema, say, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu likro kriyat Shema. Commanded us to read the Shema and then say the Shema. By the way, a Kohen that eats tithe in the temple, they have a special blessing for that. In addition to eating food, an Israelite that brought a sacrifice for Passover, an extra blessing for fulfilling the mitzvah of bringing a sacrifice. Everything is a blessing. You're supposed to say a blessing for Shema, and we call them Birkot Shema. If you look in every book, it says the blessings before Shema. So there is not one, there are 2 blessings, and they are completely unrelated to the Shema. What's the connection between them? So I'm sharing with you the summary, so we can finish early. But I want to make sure you pay attention to the summary so we can read it and you'll remember it. The purpose of Shema is to awaken love in my heart. We start, Ve'ahavta, the first part. Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, love Hashem your God, all your heart, all your might, all your soul. The whole idea of Shema, all 3 chapters of Shema, is to make me cleave to God. The blessings are all a preparation for that moment. And there are 2 blessings. Each blessing has a specific purpose. And again, the summary, and I'll expand a little bit, then we'll read it. The first blessing is to show us how mighty God is, how great and benevolent God is. So we speak about God creating the sun and the moon, God making sure the sun never falter, that the moon and the sun always walk day in, day out. I can predict exactly the position of the sun or the moon, no matter how far from today or earlier. It's always the same. It's perfect. All the angels who are bowing down and get consumed with thanks to God. That's the first blessing. What is the second blessing? How do we start the second blessing? Ahavat olam ahavtanu, a great mighty love you are loving us. We speak about the relationship between me and God, and that God loves me so deeply that there is nothing similar to that type of love. Once we understand, on one hand, how great God is, and that's the whole first blessing, then we understand the relationship between me and God, that God loves us and blesses us and promises us everything that we want. Then we can say the Shema and cleave and connect with God and love God with all your might, all your heart, and all your soul. Harry, did you understand that?
Yes. But you also have 2 brothers at night.
I knew that you were going to ask, and they're about the same thing, except as a summary, because we don't want to take too long. That's why there is no repetition of them in the evening. In the evening, we have to repeat the same in the morning, but the rabbi is instituted a smaller prayer, so there is no repetition. And the 2 blessings before the Shema are a shorter. Actually, there is one before. There are two. Amari Varovim and Avasalam. Same thing. It's a summary of the two that I just shared with you, except it's concise, concentrated, so that you don't spend long time. But the idea is elaborated in details in the morning prayer. So you go to somebody and say, you have a mitzvah to say Shema? He said, yes. Ask him, why don't we say a blessing, recite a blessing like every mitzvah? If he knows a bit, he would say to you, there are two blessings, and you'll say to him, what's the connection? The Kabbalah explained that this is the introduction to put us in the mood of connecting to God. And I should say, Chassidim, old not in age, but Chassidim were connected to Kabbalah. They would take a very long time when they recite the first two blessings of the Shema, because otherwise they are not ready to reach the point of saying, love God in all your heart, all your might, and all your soul. And I have a story. One story, and that's it. So we can finish it. There was a Chassid, I just read it today. There was a Chassid by the name of Reb Mendel Futterfass, very famous Chassid, lots of stories. He used to travel around Europe and United States to fundraise for the yeshiva in Israel, Chabad yeshiva in Kfar Chabad. So he had a son, actually, who, I believe it was he had a son who lived in London. So whenever he traveled to Europe, he would spend longer in London because he had grandchildren there. And he hired someone to drive him around to rich men's homes, and he would go knocking on doors, as a lot of people do. One time he was traveling with a guy, and they passed by a very fancy home, but you can see from far there is a mezuzah. So Reb Mendel said to him, are we stopping here? And the man said, no. So he said to him, why? He says, this Jew, I hate him very, very much. Very much hate him. So Reb Mendel stopped him and said, look, when I was young, I was once in Kermanchog. Kermanchog is a town in Poland. And a famous speaker, not Hasidic speaker, came to town to speak, to give a speech on Shabbat in synagogue. And we were told, out of respect for that speaker, we should attend the prayer at the synagogue, even though he wasn't a Chassid. But out of respect, we went. And when the time came for him to speak, he spoke about God. In the Shema says, love God with all your heart, b'chol levavcha, uvechol, with all your soul, nefesh is soul, uvechol, and with all your meodecha. What is meodecha? Meodecha is thought. What is might?
Right. Well,
Meodecha is all your wealth, all your money. That's meodecha. It says with all your might, with all your heart, all your soul, and all your might. What is might? Strength, physical strength. So it can be might, strength, but it can be also financial. But in Hebrew, the word me'od, uvechol me'odecha. You know what me'od means? Very much. Very much. When you say someone tov me'od, have you heard the phrase tov me'od? Very good. I love you very much. And you have me'od. I love. Me'od is very, right? That speaker, Reb Mendel says to this driver, he says, you must love God with all your heart, with all your soul, but with all you very, very. And he says, there is no such thing as I want to buy a car very, very much. The very, very much is for God. I love a car. Okay. I love a shirt. Okay. But you should never say, I love this shirt very, very much, because all you very much belongs to God. Did you understand that? Harry, did it make sense?
So did they go up there to the house?
I didn't finish the story. So this man, this rabbi, it's a big rabbi, speaks. He's not a chassid. He said, love God with all your heart, all your soul, and with all your very, very much. So anytime there is any object, person, situation, you can love it. But the one you love very, very much is only God. So he turned to the driver and he says, you can hate somebody, but you cannot hate somebody very, very much. So much so that you don't let me stop there? No way. Anyway, I'm sure Harry can finish the story. I'll say it on your behalf. About a Jew that a non-Jew did him a favor. I helped him with a fine that he was supposed to get from the police, and he was an attorney. So the Jew was very moved, and he wanted to show appreciation. He says to him, I want to give you a gift, but you have all the money in the world. You don't need money, so I'm going to give you an object, an article that will protect you from danger. And he gave him a mezuzah. He says, if you put the mezuzah on the door, nobody will rob you, no one will break in, no one will steal anything. It's a Jewish alarm. A month goes by, and this attorney, this lawyer, knocks on the Jew's door. And the door says, yes, hi. He says, here's your gift, take it back, I don't want it. He says, why? He says, well, actually, no one broke into my house since then, but the amount of schnorrels who are knocking on my door are way, the damage is way bigger than the way. Right, Harry? You familiar with that?
I'm in there.
Did I say it good?
Much better than I could.
Okay. So again, that it was here. The idea is there are two blessings that are set before Shema. Why? God commanded us to say the Shema. And part of the Shema is to love God. In order for us to love God, the rabbis instituted that one blessing dedicated to the greatness of God and his surrounding, his hosts and armies. And the second blessing is to my relationship with God, which is unique. And God loves me and I love God back. Once I prepare and I say it slowly, then I'm ready to say the Shema. How do you come up to love God? Says the Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe we're going to find, and that's the second part of, hopefully you'll get to, is by uttering words in through the mouth. Because it's considered like kissing. We talked about hugging and kissing before. When you use your mouth and intellect, it's kissing. So you give God a kiss when you utter the words of Torah and mitzvot. By doing so, you are uniting with God that's beyond, above speech. Kissing is above speech. I can tell someone I love you, but when you kiss somebody, it is above. As Kabbalah explains, it's higher than speech, because it's an action that words cannot be defined, cannot define it, only through the action of kissing somebody. And that's the idea of this chapter. What? Now you got the point, right? I would like to read it, and I hope that we can finish. We are towards the bottom of page 750. This will enable one to understand the eminently reasonable explanation of the rabbinic enactment ordaining the recitation of the blessing of the Shema, two blessings preceding it, and so on, one afterwards. For at first glance, it would appear that they have no connection whatsoever with the recital of Shema. As Rashba, Rabbi Shlomo ben Aderet, and other halachic authorities have stated, they give different answers, but they do not address correctly. They say that there is a mitzvah to know God's greatness, and the rabbis put it right before Shema, but there is no connection, and they shouldn't be, according to them, it shouldn't be called the blessings of Shema. In this, they are unlike other rabbinic blessings pronounced over mitzvot, where each such blessing refers explicitly to the mitzvah itself. As for example, the blessing to put on tefillin, the blessing to light candles, the blessing to hear the Megillah, the blessing for eating matzah. Why, asked the Rebbe then, were they termed blessings of the Shema? And why was it ordained that they are recited specifically before it, when they are in no apparent way connected to it, to the Shema? The Alter Rebbe explains that the purpose of these blessings is to serve as a preparation for the Shema. The main objective of the Shema is attaining a love of God with both one's inclination, so that not only the divine soul, but the animal soul and Yetzer Hara also come to love God. And for this, one must first meditate on the contents of the blessings of the Shema, which describe the self-nullification of the angels and other creatures. Thus, the blessing preceding the Shema are indeed similar to other blessings, just as the sages institute a blessing to be recited before performing any other particular mitzvah in order to make the person a fit receptacle for the beneficent flow he receives from its performance, so too did they institute the blessing preceding the Shema in order for one to properly perform that mitzvah. Why do I say a blessing before? We spoke about it many times. It is to allow us to open and become a receptacle to the flow of energy of blessing of God by performing a certain mitzvah, putting on tefillin, putting on talis, lighting Shabbat candles, all the mitzvot. In order for me to receive the blessing, to connect with the essence of the mitzvah, to love God, there has to be those two blessings to bring us to that point. But the reason is that the essence of the recital of the Shema is to fulfill the injunction with all your heart, etc. That is with both inclinations, that a Jew should love God with the whole of his heart, even with his animal soul and evil inclination. That is to say, to withstand anything that hinders him from the love of God. For your heart alludes to one's wife and our children, to whom a man's heart is by his very nature bound. So have the sages of blessed memory commented on the verse, for he spoke, and it came to pass, that this refers to one's wife. He commanded, and it stood fast, that this refers to the children. But what the rabbi is telling us is that naturally a person who is married and blessed with children is connected and loves the wife and the children. When God says, love God with all your heart, it refers to emptying my heart for a moment and loving only God, and that can only be attained if I contemplate and meditate prior about God's great achievements towards me. That is, it is God's command that imbues a man's nature with the bond to his wife and children. These are your heart, the things to which his heart is bound, and they are not to hinder his divine service. And by your soul and might is understood literally your life and sustenance. They too should not act as an impediment to spiritual service. All are renounced for the love of God. So at the time when I say the Shema, I need to get to a point where everything don't count. Everything is not important. Everything is not going to block between me and God. Thus, neither the things found within the animal soul and evil inclination, nor those things without one's wife, children, and sustenance, should hinder a person from those matters which lead to the love of God. But how can physical man attain this level of godly love and that nothing can obstruct? It is to this end, therefore, that the blessing of Yotzer Or, the first blessing, was introduced to be recited first. For in this blessing there is stated and repeated at length, and this meditation must indeed be a lengthy one, taking into account all the specific details, the account and order of the angels standing at the world's summit, in order to proclaim the greatness of the Holy One, blessed be He, how they are all nullified in His blessed light and pronounce in fear and sanctify God's name and declare in fear holy, etc., meaning by saying holy, that He is apart from them and does not clothe himself in them in a revealed state, and rather 754, where is God revealed? The whole earth is full of His glory, namely the community of Israel above, that is Malchut of Atzilut, the source of Jewish souls, which is called earth, and Israel and this earth below, wherein Jews perform Torah and mitzvot, for which reason specifically in this world filled with His glory. It is here that God closes and reveals Himself, as has been explained earlier. Did you understand what I read? Just a minute. Did you understand what I read? So again, all that is to show the greatness of the angels, and God left all that, and He's resting Himself where? Here on earth, so that I can bind myself with God through prayer, mitzvot, and study of Torah. So all that is a preparation to the Shema. Yes.
So the two brachos that we make before the Shema
Yes.
is following the introduction of the Baruch Hu of everything that's to follow.
Right. That's the point.
Yeah. So I thought the most important were the two brachos, but all of it is in the Baruch Hu, all of it is important. Usually what angels say at the time of blessing God.
100%. And the Rabbi is saying that you have to take your time and contemplate how great angels are and how much they lose themselves. They really get consumed by God, and God is not even there. Where is God found? Here on earth. They say, where is God? Ayem mekom kevodo. That's what they say to one another. And what do they say? Kvodo male olam. His glory fills the universe, this universe. So up above, they're looking for God. He's here. And God is here with us. Now you understand it. It makes it easy to connect to God with all my heart, all my soul, all my might. Harry, do you understand that? To me, it makes sense. I just hope that it makes sense to you. The goal is for us all to study and understand. Harry, Ali, are you good? Good. Yes, Harry.
My biggest problem on Mondays and Thursdays is keeping up with David Mustowski. I mean, I say it all, but I get really rushing.
Prayer is a connection between me and God. It has nothing to do with a cantor. The cantor was established for people who could not pray. You know that? The repetition of the Amidah is for people who did not read. That's why it was made. So for us today to take crutches for people who had no legs and to say I cannot walk unless I wear crutches, it just doesn't make sense. So for Hasidim, myself, we should take our time and pray at our own pace. We should not follow the cantor. The cantor is crutches. The cantor enables someone who is unable to pray on their own to assist them and make sure that their prayers are connected with the community. But for me, for example, and for anybody else, find yourself connect to God. It's an individual relationship. What? No, but it has to be in this room. Not there. All the above, I don't even have to bring examples. I think it's basic common sense. Do you agree with that, Harry? So every time when I speak about beginner service, and I do before on Rosh Hashanah, I do many times a Rosh Hashanah for beginners, and we pick very few prayers, and I give the background. I start by saying prayer is a meditation. Prayer is not a service per se, as we know it here in America, that everybody come together and we sing or we listen to a choir. You're missing the whole point of a prayer. Prayer is connecting, establish a connection. So iPhone connects with USB-C, and a tape recorder connects with a three-prong wire. Everything has their own connection. And to make it universal, that everybody has to... By the way, people are complaining from time to time about the Nusach. You know, there is Sephardic, there is Ashkenazic, within Ashkenazic there are 10, within Sephardic there is 10. People say, hey, let's do together one. Let's combine everybody. What are we, sheep? What are we, animals? I like to connect to God with my language. A Sephardic Jew likes to connect to God in his language. Moroccan, Algerian, Libyan, Syrian, Lebanese, they all have their own. Why is there changes? Because that's how their culture and that's their nature and that's how they connect to God. To make them and force them into a box that everybody says the same thing. Everybody, you are taking away the soul out of prayer. My goal as a rabbi is to convince you that when you open the prayer book, you say, now I'm connecting with my God. And you do not rush, and you do not say it fast, and you do not say because everybody is holding in that page. You pray to God. Find your spot and pray to God. Simple as that. Let's continue. All the above refers to the comprehension of the supernal angels, the seraphim, who are able to comprehend that God is apart from them and that only the earth is charged with his glory. So too we find in the aforementioned blessing of Yotzer Or regarding other categories of angels, whose places is in a lower world than seraphim. Seraphim are in Beria, the highest level, and who are therefore unable to comprehend that godliness is separated and apart. And the Ophanim and the Holy Chayot, these are, Ophanim is in Asiya, in this universe. Holy Chayot, animals, is in Yetzirah. Remember we talked about emotions. It's going to Yetzirah. I hope that you remember. Ali, you remember that? No? That the angels of Yetzirah are called Chayot HaKodesh, holy animals, because it's all about emotions. Yeah. And Beria, Seraphim is intellect. Remember we talked about if I contemplate, if I have kavana. Bria is higher, yes. Yes. Ophanim is in this universe. With mighty sound declare, blessed be the glory of the Lord, and may it be drawn down from its place. For they neither know nor do they apprehend its place, the place from which godliness is revealed. For which reason they say, from its place, wherever that place may be. They don't even know where God is. As we say a few lines later, for he alone is exalted and holy. Hu levado marom vekadosh. The various degrees of nullification of these angels are those spoken of in the first of the two blessings preceding the Shema. When a person meditates on this matter, he will begin to understand God's greatness, for all the lofty angels are nullified to him. So that's the first blessing. I hope I covered the first blessing well. Now the Rabbi is talking about the second blessing. Then follows the second blessing, which declares God's great love of the Jewish people. Now we're not talking about the God's greatness, but the greatness of the Jewish people. Notwithstanding the lofty service of the subjugation of all the heavenly angels, God saw fit to set them all aside, as it were, choosing instead to delight in the service of his people below. And this blessing begins, Lord, our God, you have loved us with everlasting love. That is to say, that he set aside all the supernal holy hosts, the heavenly angels, for they are not the ultimate intent of creation, and caused his Shekhinah, his divinity, to dwell upon us, the Jewish people, so that he be called our God in the same sense that he is called the God of Abraham, as explained earlier. We spoke about it before. In other words, my God is one-to-one, private God. God is resting here and connects with me because he loves me. Abraham was completely nullified to God. To the same degree that God is called the God of Abraham, he is also called our God. This is accomplished, as explained earlier, through the performance of Torah and mitzvot. This is because love impels the flesh. Didn't we talk about love impels the flesh? We spoke about last week.
Yes.
Love affects concealment and contraction. So too did God's love for his people bring about a certain contraction, in that he chose to service of the Jewish souls in the state in which they are found here below, and clothed in physical bodies and in the finite world. Therefore, this love on God's part is called Ahavat Olam, literally a love of the world. That's what we say, Ahavat Olam, the world love. For it refers to the contraction of his greatness, of his great and infinite light, by assuming the garb of finitude, which is called Olam, or world. The concept of world signifying the finitude of space and time. God brought about this contraction. So we start God's love towards the Jewish people. The first word is Ahavat Olam Ahavtanu. What does it mean, Ahavat Olam? The love of yours is finite into the universe. The universe is finite in space and time, etc. And therefore we begin God's love to describe it as God that is a finite love. For the sake of his love for his people Israel, in order to bring them near to him, that they might be absorbed into his blessing, blessed unity and oneness through Torah and mitzvot. And that this is also the meaning of what we say a little later, and in the same blessing of Ahavat Olam, and in connection thereto, exceedingly abounding compassion. That is, more than you have bestowed upon others, have you bestowed upon us with great compassion. Namely, a compassion exceeding the nearness of God towards all the hosts above. God's nearness to them comes out of his sense of compassion for them. This can in no way be compared to the compassion God feels for us, for which reason he draws us closer to him. The same blessing of Ahavat Olam then goes on to say the following: and you have chosen us from among all nations and tongues. This refers to the material body, which in its corporeal aspects is similar to the bodies of the Gentiles of the world. When we say, Uvanu Bacharta, you chose us, it's not the Jewish soul, as we'll see in a moment, it's the Jewish body, our human body. God chose from all other nations.
It says, namely a compassion exceeding the meaning of God towards all the hosts above. I'm talking about the angels. The hosts
Yes,
above.
yes. So his connection to us and his bending over to us to connect with finitude is greater than all other angels. Now, I hope you can follow. Are you, David, you following? Everybody follows? Huh? Thank you. I love compliments. That's why I love Ali. Really?
Relates to what we done, relates to what you said.
Harry, let me tell you something. You're a great scholar. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense.
Rabbi, thank you for your
It's from chapter 40, the last 12 chapters, I think I told you, from chapter 42. It's extremely difficult chapters, but please stay with me. We're going to finish the whole book. It's going to be a good celebration. So chapter 48, I told you, is the most difficult. But chapter 49, I think it makes sense. It's easier to follow, especially someone who has learned all the Tanya before, Sovev, Memale, the three universes, the angels, etc. Let's continue. I want to finish it tonight with Ali's blessing. True freedom of choice can only come about when one has two completely equal choices. When two things, however, are unequal, one does not freely choose one over the other. The qualities found in one and lacking in the other compel the choice. If you have apple and orange, you cannot choose orange from the apple. It's not the same. Only two oranges, I can say, I chose this one. That true choice is two equal parts, two equal entities. It is therefore impossible to say that you have chosen us, refer to the Jewish souls, for there can be no comparison between Jews and non-Jewish souls, inasmuch as a Jew's soul is truly part of God above. Rather, you have chosen us. Every morning when you say to God, thank you for choosing us, refers to the Jew's material body, which in its corporeality is similar to the bodies of non-Jews. The difference between a body of a Jew and a non-Jew, there is no difference. It's all the same. And so when I say, thank you, God, for choosing me, I refer to my body. God freely chose Jewish bodies to be the proper receptacle for the Jewish souls, desiring that through the deeds performed by the body for all physical mitzvot demand bodily participation, the Jew should become united with him. This the Alter Rebbe now goes on to explain, first continuing to quote from the Avat Olam, and you have brought us near to give thanks. The interpretation of thanks will be given elsewhere. The Rabbi is going to talk about how we say thank you to God, where the quality of abnegation found in thanksgiving will be explained, and proclaim your oneness, which means to be absorbed in his blessed unity, as has been explained above. The Rabbi is going to conclude now, and let's see if we can do it. When the thinking person, so far you understand what we said? Ali, do you follow?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you now the Rabbi wants to bring it to action. Meaning, now that you have reached the level of Shema, how do you actually express love? When I tell someone I love you very much, it's not enough. I have to demonstrate with action. And the Rabbi is going to say, when you take it in words, with action, doing mitzvot, studying Torah, but just saying, I love you, God, is not enough. So how do I express, B'chol levavcha, I love you, God, with all your heart, all your soul, all your might, is through the action of speech. When the thinking person will reflect on these matters in the depth of his heart and brain, then as surely as water mirrors the image of a face, when the love likened to water mirroring the image of a face takes effect in a person, so that God's manifest love for his people arouses in him a corresponding love towards him, then his soul will spontaneously be kindled with love for God, and it will clothe itself in a spirit of benevolence, willingly to lay down and resolutely to abandon all he possesses, for it will no longer be of major importance to him, in order only to cleave unto him and to be absorbed into his light with an attachment and longing, and so forth, in a matter of kissing, and with an attachment of spirit to spirit, as has been explained earlier. That's the idea of kissing, bonding to the greater bond. Just as kissing involved not only the cleaving of mouths but also a communion of breath, so too the spiritual unity involved the union of man's spirit with God's. Man's spirit becomes one with God's. But how does the attachment of spirit to spirit take place? That is, what measures are to be taken if one seeks to desire to only cleave to him? To this end, it is stated right after you say, Ve'ahavta, we say, V'hayu advorim, let the words be. Soon after the phrase, with all your heart, and so on, the Torah, we read in the Torah, and we say it in Shema, and these words shall be upon your heart, and you shall speak of them, as will soon be explained. This refers to immersing oneself in the study of Torah and speaking words of Torah. As is explained in Eitz Chaim, the union of kissing, which incorporates the union of the attachment of spirit to spirit, is essentially the union of Chabad, Chochmah Bina Dat with Chabad, the union of men's Chochmah Bina and Dat with God's. That is, concentration in the Torah, which unites men's Chabad, Chochmah Bina Dat, with the intellect of above, that is Torah. And the mouth, so far so good. Am I rushing, Holly? While the mouth as the outlet of the breath and its emergence into revealed state represent the category of speech engaged in words of the Torah. For by the word that proceeds from God's mouth does man live. How did God create everything? By speech. So therefore he gives us the power of speech to connect to God. God said, let there be light. God said, let there be water. Let there be plants. Let there be sun. Let there be moon. God says to us, when you speak, you make a quick kissing with God. That's why immediately after, love your God with all your heart, might, and soul, all your heart, soul, might, God says, speak the words with your mouth. However, one does not fulfill one's obligation by meditating and deliberation alone. You must have speech unless one expresses the words with his lips in order to draw the infinite light of the blessed Ein Sof downward, even unto the vivifying soul which dwells in the blood of man, which in turn is produced by the intake of food from the mineral, vegetable, and animal worlds. So when I use my energy to speak or to act, I take my vivifying soul, which is a second soul, I elevate it to God. One thereby elevates them all, the vivifying soul and the mineral, vegetable, and animal worlds, to God, together with the entire universe, and causes them to be absorbed in his blessed unity and light, which will illuminate the world and its inhabitants in a revealed manner, in the spirit of the verse that says, and the glory of God shall be revealed, so much so indeed that all flesh shall see it. For this is the purpose of finishing of the progressive descent of all the worlds. In other words, action, speech. That's how you kiss God. That the glory of God may pervade this physical world, especially in a revealed manner, to change the darkness of klipot into the light of holiness, and the bitterness of the world, whose life force is from klipat nuga, into the sweetness of goodness and holiness, as has been explained above in chapter 36 at length. And this is the essence of the intent of man's service, to draw the infinite light of the blessed Ein Sof down below. However, the initiative must come through the elevation of Mein Nukvin, meaning literally female waters, which is in Kabbalistic terminology signifies the arousal and elevation of the female, that is the recipient, to surrendering to him one's soul and one's all, as has been explained above. With this, the Alter Rebbe concludes the theme of beginning in chapter 46 regarding the love likened to water mirroring the image of a face, and concerning which he had said that the Shema and its introductory blessings are especially effective in awakening it. So, once we contemplate the blessing for Shema, and we say Shema, it arouses a real true love that no barrier in between, and it brings us to kissing, just like I love somebody very well. The kissing is expressed with speech, and therefore the Torah says, the word should be by you with your mouth to speak, because we need to affect the physical universe, and that will take not only the godly soul, but also the animal soul, the soul of vegetables, minerals, and animals, all that, elevating it to holiness. Did I make myself clear? Next chapter, we're going to talk about another type of love where we get consumed completely. Right now, it was a relationship love between two, like the water mirroring the soul. And therefore, just like God is so great and gives, and he's so glorified by the angels, we should reciprocate. Next chapter, 50, is about a whole different connection of love, like yearning, like fire. Right now, it's compared to water. Remember the water that reflects the image? Next chapter is going to be a love that is coming out of a fiery burn to cleave to God. Thank you so much, everybody, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.